Hello, it's Gray.
Hello, it's Crystal.
And this is Basation View. This is a supernatural commentary podcast where I, someone who's seen the show many, many times.
And I, someone who only knows this show through social media, discuss every single episode of Supernatural from start to finish. Also, we're both Asian.
Both Asian. For today's episode, we will be discussing Season 5, Episode 11, Sam Interrupted, written by Andrew Dabb and Daniel Laughlin, directed by James L. Conway.
None of these people should have careers anymore. I personally feel... Daniel Laughlin's out at some point, right? Like, yeah. I don't remember him. Until season 8.
Isn't their next episode like fucking Hammer of the
Gods?
People will write anything.
No, they do Dark Side of the Moon first.
Yeah. Actually, this episode, you know how sometimes you're like, you don't know what is good and what is bad in media? And
sure.
I mean, like for me, like a lot of it's very rare that I'm like, it's good or it's bad. Except when, we're podcasting about it, such as in Supernatural and Good Omens. Most of the time, it's like, did I feel a certain way watching it? Blah, blah, blah. That's the more, that's the easier thing to respond to as a watcher of something, right? Mm-hmm. This one made me feel so much, and all the feelings are so negative that for a while I was like, maybe it's not even that bad. Because it's like, it made me feel so much, but it is that bad, I think.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. It was a bad time.
Yeah.
I don't, but, how would we even evaluate it from a technical standpoint? Like, if the case was, like, good, like, it was, like, whatever.
Yeah, like, there is a point where that's, like, you can just ignore that. Like, we have other pressing matters.
Yeah, I agree.
The way we are gonna talk about this episode is gonna be a little bit different because I don't wanna talk about it.
Yeah. I'm not like I don't really want to be describing every individual scene that happens either, given that most of them are just sanist jokes.
Yeah, we're going to give like a general summary of the episode, and then we're going to talk about some things that we want to talk about, I guess. Yeah. So, what did you know about this episode before going in? There's definitely some scenes that are like known, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the boop scene is known, but I don't think I knew it was in this episode.
The context of it, yeah.
Right. All I knew was that it was a case in a mental hospital, and they got in by being patients, and that at some point Dean is confronted with the fact that he's, like, definitely an alcoholic.
Yeah. That's it? Pudding.
Yeah, that's all I knew.
That's like a famous, like, GIF set, I think. Or GIF, I don't know.
What is?
Pudding. Right? Like, when they're inside that.
Never seen that.
Is that really? Damn.
What is it?
Okay.
What's the gift set that it's in?
It's not a gift set. It's just one GIF. I don't know.
Is it like a reaction?
I'm so sorry. I still don't know which one it is.
Either there's a debate raging about it. The creators said it was GIF, but I refused to accept that.
Slay. Typical Crystal behavior, I guess.
Yeah, to me, the creators of GIFs and Neil Gaiman are one and the same.
Yeah. Like, there's just one where it's like Dean going, pudding. And I think it's like, I've seen it around a bit. like outside of supernatural. Now let's get into the episode, I guess. Well, I want to actually talk about the dance sequence.
Yes.
It's like Ellen and Joe dying is the plot song, is the dance sequence.
It goes from that directly to yellow fever.
Yeah. Where Dean is like, we're crazy. We're hunting. That's so crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like he goes, we are insane.
Yeah.
So I guess it's supposed to refer to the fact that they are gonna go insane this episode, I guess.
I think it's to talk about how Martin is meant to set up something about how hunting is harmful to your mental health and will eventually catch up with you somehow. A plot line that they don't do anything good about.
Yeah. Cass is prominently in this dance sequence, and by prominently, I do mean he has one line. And I'm pointing it out because Crystal has called me out on it before. He's always prominent
that's
whenever
what
he
prominently
is
means
in the fucking show. Yeah, and I don't know. There's more stuff. There's more like
it's
Sam
about,
being
like,
angry.
Lucifer
Yeah,
is what it's about.
Which is kind of like why are they painting Sam being angry at Lucifer as
Lucifer?
That's Lucifer.
Like, have you heard of a little thing called Christianity? Many people are mad at that guy.
Whole religion is relying on being angry at Lucifer, I think. Like, why is Sam suddenly so special? I understand that Sam is the specialist little princess in the world, but not for this. For other things.
Yeah, like, I do think that, like, yeah, he is angry, and I think that him being, like, quick to anger and quick to revenge is a big part of who he is in season 1, at least.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just odd to bring it back here and then also
at
do
Lucifer
nothing about it.
Also,
yeah,
like,
and have he in the end he's like, I was mad at you, and Dad, like, well, yeah, because like your dad was abusive, and like Dean, like, although he had no responsibility to you because he was also being abused, like he didn't like help. Like that's a normal thing to be mad about. Then he was like, and then I was mad at Ruby, like literally makes sense.
She
like,
betrayed you. So.
Yeah, and he's like, and now I'm mad at Lucifer. That's so weird.
That's literally Lucifer, dude. It's about to possess you. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
It's the same deal where they keep on bringing up Stanford as like an evidence of something. And it's like, well,
yeah,
I think that's completely
like betraying
reasonable.
his family or something. Like he went to college to be a lawyer, whatever.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the episode, it starts like in a fucking clinic, and Dean's like, oh, can you fix up my brother? And then Sam starts talking about his life, like real life. And the doctor's like, wow, interesting. And Dean is like, yeah, and the thing is, Sam shouldn't feel guilty about all of his actions because it was Ruby's fault. Blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the doctor's like, get these two in there.
Sam pronounces Cass as Castiel again during this scene.
Why is that?
I don't know.
He
like,
does it before in the past,
Padalecki
too.
not know? Yeah, he does it on the phone at some point.
Castiel.
Like, Castiel, it's weird. Like, it's whatever. I guess it's better than Castiel. Or is it?
Excuse me? What do you mean it's better than Castiel, the best pronunciation of Castiel ever?
Castiel's fun. Castiel isn't. Castiel feels like he's like, I don't know. Castiel feels like he's like the CEO of something. And like in a bad way, because I don't think there's a good way to be a CEO of something. Castiel is fun. You're right. I take back what I said.
Thank you. There's like a very ominous kind of like ominous because of how cheery she is lady who does their checkup, And like later on, she's revealed to be the Wraith. Honestly, Wraiths are iconic in Supernatural. Like, we'll see them. We'll see them.
Right. I feel like I've seen like the brain that's been sucked of everything, like in multiple gifs. And I don't, yeah, not just from this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not actually sure if we see a lot of the brain. We see a lot of the hand thing for sure, the spiky thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Remember
fun.
when she like has a fight scene where she puts her hand spike away in order to start fighting? Like, what was that about?
Well, because it's sensitive and it's just for piercing. It's not like a slasher thing. Which is
all right.
So she puts it out when she's about to pierce Dean's head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she extends it when it doesn't reach him. Like, so true.
Yeah.
It's so fun, though. Like, really, when he, like, snapped it off. Like, I thought that was fun.
That was fun, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. They go in.
Yeah, and she infects them with what they call something crazy later by doing a prostate exam.
Yeah. Inside, like, they meet Martin, and I do want to linger on Martin a bit. He is, like, they're very vague on his backstory. Yeah. All we know is something.
He and John were hunting buddies.
Yeah. And they were in Albuquerque. Well, he was in Albuquerque. Where is Albuquerque?
I think it's in New Mexico. I think there's an airport there.
No, yeah, I've definitely heard that place before. So that means it's... But I've heard many places in the United States. So that could mean anything, honestly. They were in Albuquerque. Something went wrong. And then he checked himself in to this institution.
Right. So he's been here for like at least
a while. Yeah.
3 years? Is that how math works? If probably 4, like, because I'm assuming that he and John were hunting and that ended before season 1. So 5 years? That's how math works.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way he is portrayed is he is clear-headed. But when hunting gets brought up, he gets jittery about it.
Yeah.
There's a scene later where they're trying to convince him to hunt with them. And he was like, no, I don't want to. Like, it's bad for me. I don't want to. And this is
he mentions earlier that like, seeing dead bodies specifically is like difficult for him.
This is painted as something that is so unreasonable and annoying.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Sam, what? They're like, this guy's such a coward. But I mean, they also called Sam a coward for that.
Oh my God. But like, they painted forcing Sam back as like a bad thing, right? It had to be something Sam chose for himself.
I mean, but it's he chose it because all the people trying to get him to come back were right.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So this is just like Supernatural's perspective on the thing, I guess.
Yeah, the whole like we just need everybody on board, and if you're like capable of hunting, then you have to, or else you're evil, or I don't even know what they're going for. But yeah, he is portrayed as a coward for having trauma around dead bodies.
Well, the murders have been... Oh, we see the murder actually at the beginning of this episode.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
There's like a monster that seems to come out of the grates, is the POV of the woman whose death we see at the beginning. And then it comes out at night, and then people are found dead in the morning, seemingly by suicide.
Yeah. And
this happened to a few people so far. Yeah. But the concerns of the patients regarding this have been wholly dismissed by everyone on the staff.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, they are hammering in the like, these doctors are terrible, or this one doctor, I guess, is kind of shitty.
But what seems to be hammered home is just that, like, he's wrong because he's wrong about the monster not existing, when it's like, I think the
He's
issue
wrong
is that
because
him
this
being this dismissive and like smirking at Dean when like he thinks that Dean is like sane and Sam isn't, like while Sam's talking about the apocalypse, like all he's like just a bad doctor even if the monster wasn't real.
And like, you know, the way he talks to Sam, he is not a monster when that was happening, right? He's never the monster.
Yeah, he's never the monster.
Like when he was like threatening Sam that like like if you cause trouble, we will put you in maximum security prison equivalent of a mental hospital. It's like, well, I don't know. Shitty guy.
Sam gets taken away to group therapy, away from Dean because they're the doctor calls them dangerously codependent, which is true, I think.
Yeah.
One of the patients is trying to talk about the monster, but he gets shut down by the doctor. I think it was just like the doctor sucks because the guy just like says a few times that there's a monster. And then the doctor's like, I'm gonna call the orderlies on you. Like,
yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just a lot of him just being a dick, but it only being portrayed as wrong because he's wrong about the monster. And it's just like, okay, like you thought that these were suicides. If at least 3-4 patients in the last week in like your mental hospital where you're supposed to be making them feel better about their lives killed themselves, like maybe you need to re-examine how you're running things around here.
And also just like from, you know, like if he's not aware that there is actually a monster. If one of your patients is like this, like somebody killed 4 other people and painted it as a suicide and they're gonna come for me next, like I think you should do something about it.
Yeah, like telling that guy shut the fuck up is like not the way, bro.
It's like, you know, I understand that, you know, especially here. Like, I don't know about the United States. I'm sure it's also horrible. But it's especially here, it's like there's so few resources, so few whatever. I mean, there's an uptick right now of like people who are graduating as psychologists. It's fun, I guess. But like there are so few resources and so few facilities here to deal with mental health patients, and especially like the inpatient type of dealing with patients, right? So I think a part of me, there is like a sort of like you cannot demand, well, not that you cannot demand better, but like I understand that like they're understaffed, they're under-facilitated, blah, 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 blah. And that is like an argument I hear around a lot. And I don't know, like a lot of my perspective is I don't give a shit. Like, yeah. I mean, obviously it's like true. And it does affect the kind of service that you get from these people. There, I think a part of me is also like, well, somebody has to advocate for like the other side, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's the stance I have taken on in my life so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Just putting it out there, I guess.
Yeah. Dean meets a doctor who is like, I don't know how to describe her.
A hot woman.
Yeah, she's like a hot woman. And like
she's cool.
He's tried to flirt with the nurse earlier and also this doctor, but neither of them act on it, which is good. But also, like, she's a hallucination and the nurse is a wraith, so... yeah. Right. Yeah, she's hot, she's cool, she seems to be, like, good at getting to the bottom of him without, like, being dismissive in, like, the way that the other doctor is. And they like trade questions back and forth where she asks about him and he asks about the case. And later it's like, of course, the only person on staff who seems slightly competent isn't an actual employee.
Yeah.
We learn a few things about Dean, which I guess first that he has about 50 drinks a week. And second that he's never been in a relationship for longer than 2 months. Which, Cassie was 1 month? Was that what their backstory was?
Perhaps so. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy that 2 months is long term.
Like, what would you define as a long-term relationship?
I don't know. Like, maybe 6 months?
Okay. Yeah. For me, it's like I'd either alternate between 3 months or 1 year. Like, I don't really know. But
I think,
yeah.
I think by 2 months, you're still, like, in the
Honeymoon
growing pains
phase.
age.
Mm.
Or, like, honeymoon stage. I don't know. Depends, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like if you know each other before you get together, the 2 months is the growing pains stage. Because you're trying to readjust, recalibrate, etc. If you just meet, that's the honeymoon stage. So, there we go.
So, after this, we meet a character named Wendy. And it's horrible that she exists. Her role is to play like a red herring in the case because basically like the trajectory of this is that Sam and Dean both realize that like, or at least Dean's having hallucinations. What's Sam's thing? Is he also having hallucinations?
I mean, yeah, later on.
Yeah, I forgot. Okay.
He punches like
both
people. He
right,
thinks he's
the
being
air.
mobbed. Yeah.
Yes. So Sam and Dean are both having hallucinations and like other symptoms of mental illness later, and they realize that the wraith who they're hunting must be infecting them in order to make them, as they say, crazy. So like, and they think that the infection happens through touch or saliva or something, so the point of Wendy is for them to think briefly that she's the wraith. However, the extent of her character is that she shows up in the hallway with no warning and makes out with Dean, and she's like a hot woman. And then later she does the same thing with Sam, and like Dean's into it, but Sam tells him that he shouldn't pursue that because the reasoning seems to be that Wendy can't meaningfully consent, which I don't think is true. So, yeah, like, all of her scenes are showing up to make out with each of them one time each, and then being found dead in her room. So that's her.
Yeah.
Great.
She lives, though.
As far as we're aware, the guy who was talking in group ends up being the next one to die. Sam and Dean do an autopsy and find out that his brain seems like completely like black and sucked dry and calcified or whatever. Okay, they almost get caught by the nurse.
And this is when the pudding stuff happens. Like, this is when the pudding gif is done. So, yeah.
They talk with Martin and figure out that it's a wraith and that, you know, they get the right weapon for it.
It's silver.
Eventually, silver. And you can figure out which creature is a wraith by checking in the mirror. They start discussing here why the wraith might have set up camp here. And, like, their reasoning is just that, like, it makes sense. It's just that, like, everyone here is institutionalized, so, like, they can't escape well. And also, people won't believe them about seeing a monster. However, later, when the wraith herself is explaining what's going on, her reasoning is completely that, she keeps saying that crazy brains taste the best because they have a lot of dopamine in them. Like, go find a jogger post-jog. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I think just the way that it's presented later is very... The episode just uses the word crazy a lot as, like, their only descriptor of any mental illness. Like, they don't talk about, like, anything specific except for, like, when the doctor mentions that Dean is schizophrenic. And, like, the point is just to, like, draw this very clear line between, like, people who are sane and people who are crazy. And crazy just means, like, anything that seems slightly out of, like, the bounds of, like, neurotypical behavior. And, like, the whole, like, crazy brains taste special thing is just very, like, there are also some differences, like, but
I would say there were many differences.
Oh no, I was starting with like yes, there's some difference in like chemical makeup, like if you have certain disorders, but like the way that they flatten it and like turn it into such a stark binary that's like, it's all one and the same. Like they mix up like Sam and Dean hallucinating with like Dean for like one brief scene for a joke, like not wanting to step on the cracks on the tiles as like a haha, isn't this a well-known OCD thing? Like they're just throwing everything together without any thought to like actual people who have mental disorders.
Yeah. I mean, like the whole point, like, you know, later on Dean is like, oh, I mean, at some point we were probably gonna go crazy, me and Sam, but it's happening at the same time, so that means it's being caused by something else. So like, they're like, one, they do refer to themselves in this moment as going insane or crazy or whatever. Two, there is an acknowledgement that this is a probable part of their future. And yet, like, no aspect of the episode attempts to treat mental illness as, like, with any complexity. And mentally ill people as people. Like, nothing. I guess they attempt a little bit with Martin, I guess, and then fail completely. Maybe they don't even attempt. I'm not sure. Like, it's so... This is, like, the part of the episode that really upset me. Like, you're going to do an episode inside a mental hospital and then just, like, make fun of everyone and be like, oh, we're not like them. Which is the whole point of the episode, I guess. And if you do this, we're gonna be just like them, and that's so bad. And it's like, ugh. I know they're going to have mental hospital episodes in the future as well. I am curious into how they are going to do that. The Kyle
one, or
the episode, like,
that was a rehab.
Sam was in Bourne. Really? In Born Again Identity? Or not Born Again? Born Again Identity?
Oh, right. Sure. The Born Again Identity, I think.
Born First? No, it's not Born Again.
I think it's Born Again. Why wouldn't it be Born Again?
I don't know. What does the word born again mean for you? Is it also a religion?
Yeah, I mean, it's a religion thing. It's called the Born Again Identity.
Okay. Slay.
I think it's because they just find Cass again, right?
No, Sam's also happening. Sam is also in
No,
that episode.
I'm saying that it's probably called that because they find Cass again, but it's also, and it's a play on, I think there's a movie or something called The Bourne Identity, where Bourne is like the last name, Bourne.
Jason Bourne. They filmed in Manila.
Oh.
Yeah.
How, do you know anything else about that movie?
Yeah, I watched it, I guess.
Oh. How was it?
I don't know, they're jumping around doing stuff.
Cool.
It's a fucking action movie. What do you want me to say?
I don't know anything about it. I assumed it would have something to do with the plot of the episode regarding, like, amnesia or mental
I think it's
hospitals,
just a
but
pun.
I guess not.
I think it's just a pun.
Okay, wait, what's the identity in the action movie?
Him. He's identifying as Jason Bourne. I don't know. Oh, the movie that was filmed in the Philippines is the Bourne Legacy. So
Okay.
it's a part of the Bourne series, which includes the Bourne identity.
Okay. Well, anyway. Right, speaking of Sam, what seems to be the attempted beginning emotional core of the episode is that Sam tells Dean that he's worried about him because he hasn't been right since Joe and Ellen's deaths. First off, like, they were Sam's friends too.
Yeah.
Secondly, do they do anything with that?
Not at all. They don't ever acknowledge it ever. I think, like, at the end when Dean was like, you gotta suck it up.
Right,
Blah,
you
blah,
have
blah.
to repress all of your
Everything.
feelings. That was supposed to be that was supposed to come back to that. Okay, so that was the first attempted emotional core. Not really working. Second attempted emotional core is that Sam is angry at Lucifer, and that's wrong. We already talked about
So
that.
stupid.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
Stupid. Third, they seemed to be setting up something regarding Martin, and then they don't
Yeah.
do
and then-
anything. The next scene is just that Dean sees Dr. Fuller, who's like the male doctor who was leading group, in the mirror, and he appears to be a wraith. So when he and Sam and Martin meet back up, we have that scene that we talked about earlier where they're like, Martin, you should hunt with us. And he's like, no, I can't. And is clearly shaken. And Sam says, we know what happened in Albuquerque. And Martin stops and goes, you don't know the half of it. And then we never learn what happened in Albuquerque, not a single half of it. What was that about? What was the point of that exchange?
I don't know, just
Like,
to be
did
ominous and
something
mysterious.
happen during filming? Like, it just feels like there's so much that got cut because there's so many dangling threads.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
was there nothing planned for this? Because, like, it was, there's a clear setup for, like, whatever happened in Albuquerque to be revealed at some point. And I don't think it would necessarily make the episode that much better.
Stronger.
Stronger or anything. Because, like, I feel like the point that they'd be making is just that, like, oh, like, Martin's in here for a good reason. Like, he got trauma from, like, being brave and cool, unlike these people who are just crazy. So, like, I don't think it would improve the episode much, but, like, it did seem like they were trying to work towards something with Martin. And,
because
like,
they mention
his
it prior to
backstory.
this also. Like, they also say, like, oh,
like, he hasn't
after
been
Albuquerque,
the same since Albuquerque. Yeah. Like, what happened, bro?
And if they're trying to, you know, make that parallel of, like, just like Ellen and Joe, and Dean hasn't been the same since then, it's like, we'll try to do something about it.
Yeah, try a little harder. What's happening here?
So they go for the attack. Martin is actually there, or he shows up later, and basically, like, Sam attacks the doctor, and he slices him on the arm with a silver something, and he doesn't disintegrate completely. And then, like, there are two orderlies who come in, and Sam, like, demolishes these two.
Yeah.
You know, he goes for the kill, except Martin stops him because that's not the Wraith. And then Sam gets sedated, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And then they bring him back to a room where I don't know, he's there, I guess. Dean comes in and they talk. I forgot actually what this conversation is. What is it about?
Just how Dean realizes that he was wrong about the wraith being Dr. Fuller, so he's worried that he's, like, going crazy. And then Sam says that you're my brother and I still love you, but he's also, like, very drugged up the whole time, and the general scene is just played for humor because Sam's, like, high. And, like the premise of, like Sam got checked in, like Dean in the intake appointment is talking about how, like it wasn't Sam's fault that he started the apocalypse. He was just high. And, like, he's currently in a situation where he's been forcibly drugged and tied to a bed, like, in a way that's quite similar to the panic room in season 4, I would say. And then there's another scene where he's in solitary where it feels even more similar to that, and they don't do anything with that. It just seems like a very obvious parallel that you would discuss
it's because
in some way.
It's funny. It's for comedy. My God. Like, later on, the scene that you pointed out of, like, Dean stepping on the tiles.
Or trying to avoid stepping
cracks.
on the tiles.
Yeah. Like, that was also played comedically. And, like, I don't know. Like, a bit of me was like, maybe Jensen Ackles is just missing the tone completely. But also, there was a director for this episode, and they could have directed.
Yeah, I think it was meant
properly.
to be played comedically.
So it was intentional. It was like this, and it was so frustrating, because, like, you know, there's the ableist aspect of it, but also, like, story wise, you could be doing something interesting here, like. Sam and Dean are interesting characters, and especially, like, as you said, Sam Steer. Like, it is an interesting situation that he has been put, and instead of doing anything with it, it's just silly, goofy time, and it's like, well, don't think that's fun.
Like, isn't it funny how mental hospital patients get forcibly sedated because then they talk funny and boop their brothers' noses? Like, no. Incorrect. So that's a scene that is annoying.
So Dean, like, starts, you know, he's walking the hallway. The lady doctor, like, stops him and talks to him, and then she starts talking a bit more with knowledge of what's happening, and Dean is like, oh, what are you really, what are you, and then this I suppose janitor stops them and goes like, hey, stop all that, and points out that Dean is actually talking to nobody. And Dean, like, you know, does freak out about this because, like, oh my God, I am actually going crazy.
Right. And also the bent of the conversation with the doctor is just that, like, Dean feels responsible for everybody in the world and that, like, he needs to save everybody. And that's, like, a bunch of, like, pressure and guilt, blah, 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 that he's putting himself under. I just really don't buy any storyline like this in Supernatural where it's like, you're so guilty about all the people you can't save, etc., etc. Because, like, so many people die on their cases while they're fucking around elsewhere and they don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just specific people that they feel bad about dying. But whatever, I guess that's what they're going for. We have the scene where Dr. Fuller comes in and, as we've mentioned, threatens to put Sam in a facility that is equipped to handle violent patients if he has another outburst.
And then it's like, and there they won't be as niceys.
Yeah, as me.
And also the doctor was like, I don't think you can get better because you're so angry. And it's like
you're a terrible doctor. Yeah. He goes like, you know, like, I think that, like, your delusions around monsters, like, that's fine. People learn to live with that. But, like, your anger issues are incurable. And it's like, well, at least you said that first sentence, but can we circle back to that second sentence? What? He specifically says that Sam, the look in Sam's eyes was, like, not human.
My God.
Like,
and this dude is
fire,
dude.
He's not fire this guy. Yeah, and, like, the point is, like, the themes and motifs. But, like, if you're setting something inside of a mental hospital, like, maybe you should think about what is, like, appropriate for the staff to be saying or doing. And, like, if it's not appropriate, then, like, probably they should just be the monster. Or, it's not, okay, like, portrayal of, like, shitty staff at a mental hospital is, like,
it's fine.
Because, like, that is true. But, like, it's the way that it's treated, like, this is, like, an okay way for him to talk to a patient. And, like, in fact, like, good for him to tell Sam this so that he can come to realizations and change as a person. Like, that's the issue.
Yeah, like, I mean, this is why, like, you know, for a while I was like, oh, I feel like shit. It must be an okay episode. Because, like, yeah, it's supposed to make you feel like shit. I don't know, like, the specifics
like, it's
of
not
how they do
really
it.
supposed to make you feel like shit is the thing. Like, I think it's supposed to be mostly a light-hearted episode.
Crazy. I don't know, let's check the reviews later. Let's check the reviews later. Perhaps people have the same sentiment as we do.
Right. It's, like, just the, like, I guess we have Asylum in season 1. And, like, that one, like, the horror is around patient abuse. And, like, the twist is, like, the patients, like, when they killed that doctor, like, they were acting reasonably as a result of him, like, doing certain experiments to make them angrier and stuff. Like, the horror is tied into the mistreatment, whereas here, like, the horror is completely separate. They suggest that, like, the structure of a mental hospital makes it so that it's easier to abuse and prey on patients, and then, like, the Wraith shows up and completely nixes that. And then, like, the places where we see mistreatment, like, of Sam, like, that's not part of the horror. It's just, like, what an annoying obstacle, but, like, this obstacle is only wrong because monsters are real and we need to hunt it. And, like, there's no feeling that, like, if you did this to someone who wasn't Sam, that it would be wrong. Like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's the main bent of the episode that gets me riled up.
Yeah. Sam was allowed to go out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and also, like, the fact that they were like, it's so bad that Sam beat up those orderlies. And the episode, like, agrees with it, doesn't it? Like, the episode agrees with the whole, like, Sam is so sick in the head for being so mad. He beat up those orderlies. And it's like,
yeah, while he was trying to kill someone he thought was a monster. Many
times. And also, like, he's a giant man. Like, he just moves around. He's so
he takes
big.
a step, like, all your bones break.
I mean, I think that's a mean thing to say about Sam Winchester. No, but, like, you understand what I mean, right? Like, to paint it as, like, Sam is so monstrous. Why? Because he's big and, like, has years and years and years of combat experience. I think that's completely normal for Sam Winchester. Like, I don't know, it's just so stupid.
Yeah, I mean, the funniest Sam is too angry moment is when he's trying to lockpick a door and Dean's like, come on, hurry up. And then, like, he turns around and the camera really focuses on his face when he tells, what does he tell Dean? Like, shut up?
Shut up, like, Dean, or something, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my god, Sam's so angry and mean in this moment. It's like
Dean,
all of us wished we could tell Dean to shut the fuck up.
Exactly. And then, I don't know, Sam like starts walking down, but when he gets there, Dean like tells him like, I don't know, you're actually a monster and it's not about Ruby, it's you. And then people start beating him up, and then he fights back and he starts, punching around. And then as we go, we see that it's actually not real and it's a hallucination, and Sam gets taken away and Dean is like in the corner. And they do like the like the thing that they do with like when they're trying to portray someone as losing their mind, where they're like twiddling their thumbs or something.
Right.
Yeah. That's how Dean is being played right now.
Right.
Yeah. And so Dean goes in to talk to Martin about it. And it's like this scene where he keeps on being distracted from talking. But basically he's like, oh, it must be Wendy's fault. And also, I don't know, something's happening.
Yeah. One interesting thing is that he thinks that at one moment, he wonders if it's the ghost of John that's making his brain act up. Which, like, that's fascinating. Like, I don't think they meant anything by it in the episode besides, like, what a funny line. But it's like, I don't, like, why would Dean think that? What does he think John would want? Like, what would John gain by doing this? Like, why does he think John's angry at him?
They go out, the tiles thing happens here, and immediately a woman screams, and then Dean just completely abandons this compulsion because the bit is done. The joke is already delivered, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Yep. Wendy's there with like slit wrists, and the nurse is standing over her with like her wraith face and like licking her wraith fingered thing. There's like a spike that comes out of her wrist, and there's like a fight scene, and the wraith heads out of the room and calls on two orderlies to go to Wendy's room to like
subdue,
like fight to subdue Dean and Martin. And like Martin basically offers to help hold them back and also look after Wendy as Dean goes after the wraith.
Because Wendy is still breathing, like she's still alive.
Yes.
And that when the orderlies come in, Martin is standing over her. So that's yeah,
like it's going to look bad,
really bad. Yeah.
Though I mean, it seems it's possible that they might end up blaming him for the deaths of all the other patients. He also attacks the two orderlies, which is like something that they will absolutely punish him for in some way, and that is the last we see of him for the entire episode. When they're escaping, they do not try to get him out despite knowing like for sure that he's going to be punished severely.
When they were running out, I was like looking at my screen going like, go back, because Martin is still there. And when Sam stops, I was like, he's stopping because he's gonna go back in, or he's gonna say, hey, we should get Martin or something. But no, he doesn't. They don't give a shit. And like the only mention of him after this episode is for Dean to be like, you don't want to end up like him, do you?
Yeah, and it's like,
so
well, he's a much nicer and more pleasant person to be around than either of you. I would rather end up like Martin than either of you. What are you even talking about?
My God. It's such a big, like, to me, like, okay, fine. The Winchesters think crazy people are not people. Whatever. They have been long established as very loyal to the Hunter pack, very loyal to all the people who have helped them or John in the past. Martin threw himself at these orderlies so that Dean can go and save Sam, and is like taking the fall for it basically. And like it is not like painted as anything that they are to be grateful for. Like, at all. Like, okay, fine, leave him there. I don't know, whatever. Just like, it's so ungrateful. There's like, it's because they don't view him as part of the pack anymore, as part of the hunter pack anymore. Like, they just think he's like a pathetic loser, I guess. Like,
I guess, even though, like, he did overcome, like, his fears or whatever to help you and everything. Like, so, like, the main reason you thought he was a loser or whatever is gone. But I guess the actual main reason is that he's mentally ill, so that will never change in your minds. Great.
Yeah, and it's like, of course it's going to bring up negative feelings. Like, the idea that, like, oh, we have, like, somebody who's part of the community or part of the family or whatever, but like, it's so embarrassing that they're mentally ill, and it's like, my god, man, like, because that is how it is portrayed, right? Like, you don't want to be like Martin because Martin's like embarrassing and whatever. And in a way, they're using that mindset, not in a way, like, they are using that mindset to justify leaving him behind. He's either gonna go to that maximum facility, whatever the doctor was talking about, or to prison. And it's like, you're just going to leave him there? My god.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Winchesters,
right, it's like, there seems to be just the idea that, like, we can't break him out because, like, the real world needs to be, like, kept away from him. Like, he can't handle it, or like, he could be a danger to the outside. I don't know, but there is just like he can't exist outside of this facility. So, like, if that means that he's just gonna end up in prison or like in like a maximum security facility that probably abuses its patients like crazy, then like, whatever. You can't put him in the outside world. Like, you're... no. Incorrect. The end.
Yeah. So horrible.
Yeah. So horrible. He checked himself in, too.
Yeah.
Like,
he was not... I don't think we are to believe that he was causing any trouble for anyone before he checked himself in.
Yeah. And even if he didn't, like, they shouldn't have left him behind, but it'd be like, maybe we need to discuss, like, if there's other, like, treatment that we want to get him under a new identity or whatever. But yeah.
I know. Like, it's just, like, none of these people are treated like people. Martin is the only one we actually talked to. Wendy, not particularly. Yeah. And those are, like, the only two people aside, I guess also the like person who was like, I saw it. Like, that's a person we see. Yeah. And it's just, my god.
The Wraith enters Sam's room. He's been put in like solitary in a padded room and like tied to a bed. And she starts trying to feed on him. And this is when she says that crazy brains taste better because of all the hormones and chemicals in them. She says, and the crazier they are, the better they taste.
What the fuck is the matter?
What does that mean? Yeah.
Play.
What does that mean? Dean comes in to try to defend Sam, and there's a fight sequence where he defeats her by, like, she thinks she has him and she's gonna feed on him, so her spike comes out, but then he breaks it off and she starts bleeding a lot from it, and then he kills her. But, like, her body, like, doesn't change. Like, she still looks like a human nurse.
Yeah. And also, she doesn't disintegrate. She's just on the floor.
Right. So I was almost waiting for a twist where it was like, it wasn't even her. But No, like it was her, but like nothing happens to her body, I guess. And then they run out. I guess it's possible that most of the deaths, well, not all of them can be blamed on Sam and Dean, because most of them happened before they got here. But it's possible that since they escaped, and it's clear that like they killed this nurse, that Martin will only be blamed for attacking the two orderlies.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also don't know what the camera situation is in this mental hospital, so yeah.
I mean, this wraith got around, so
that's true.
Probably not that good.
Yeah, probably not that good. Like, yeah,
well, I mean, she was attacking inside rooms, and they shouldn't have inside rooms, right?
I don't know what the norm is
Laws
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so they escape, and they have a final conversation where Sam's like, the Wraith was right. And Dean's like, no, it's fine, and also I need 12 drinks, which I think is supposed to be a continuation of the, like, he does have a substance abuse problem regarding alcohol, but we're not gonna do anything about it. But yeah, Sam's just like, I have anger problems because I was mad at John, Lilith, and Lucifer. I think all reasonable people to be angry
and, like,
at.
I understand, like, Sam's, like, I'm mad at everything. Like, yeah, that is a problem. Like, being mad is not a pleasant feeling. So if you're mad all the time, like that's not good.
Yeah. If his point is, like, being angry all the time, like, decreases my quality of life or, like, makes my judgment worse in, like, important situations, like, fine. Okay. But I feel like all he's going off of is the doctor being like, you'll never get over this, and also you didn't look human when you were angry. Like, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't want to diminish, like, the anguish of having anger issues. It's just that the way Supernatural does it is so fucking stupid. Everything that they do is so stupid. What if Andrew Dabb and Daniel Laughlin are terrible writers? We have considered this multiple times, and it's true. But,
yeah, they are.
Let's consider it again. Oh, considered Hammer of the fucking gods. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and yeah, Dean tells him, like, it doesn't matter. Like, he goes, what are you gonna do? You gonna take a leave of absence? You gonna say yes to Lucifer? The first one, leave of absence, is that just like Sam quitting hunting as he did earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like, well, sorry about your anger issues, but since you're not gonna say yes to Lucifer or quit hunting, you just have to take all that crap and bury it so that we don't end up like Martin. This is truly the season of Dean giving absolutely shit mental health advice. Remember when he told Bobby, if you ever bring up being suicidal again, like, I hate you, or whatever.
My god.
Right. And it's like, I get why, like, this is like, you're in survival mode, it's the apocalypse, whatever. But, like, the people watching this episode are usually not in survival mode during the apocalypse. Like, you have to keep that in mind when you're having Dean dish out the world's worst advice. But yeah, and then they drive away, leaving Martin behind to face the horrors. The end.
Yeah, well,
bad.
What did we think about this episode? Multiple terrible things in many layers. Yeah.
Yeah. I have nothing but complaints about it, but I
best
think
line, worst line. Why have we trapped ourselves to saying a best line for anything? Honestly, is the question.
I feel like I found the initial scene where they're just talking to Dr. Fuller and trying to get into the hospital by talking about their lives straightforwardly. I feel like I did find that a bit amusing.
You know, when Dean does the whistle and then twirls his fingers like crazy, I was like, that is something Dean Winchester would do. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is something Dean Winchester would do.
Worst line, I think,
yeah.
Everything? I don't know.
Yeah, I think all of
I really
them.
do hate when Dean goes like, you're gonna bury it, you're gonna forget about it, because that's how we keep going. That's how we don't end up like Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hate it.
Shut the fuck up, Dean.
Writers since spread the sheets.
They've managed to mostly dodge our 3 main columns, but there is misogyny in the form of Wendy.
Yeah, I think that's a 2. Because, I mean, she does show up 2 times.
It's true. 1 point per time.
Racism and homophobia is a 0. We have to put fucking... Didn't we have like an episode where we put like honorary column?
Yeah, I think when the levee breaks. Yeah, we just put +5 ableism in a column that did not have a header.
This
+10.
Yeah, well, we have a 1 to 5 rating. We have a 1 to 5 rating. We have to respect the fucking rating.
Yeah, let's respect the fucking rating. Alright, IMDb. I don't think this is particularly enjoyed by the populace.
I don't know. I hope not. I would say perhaps this is an 8.3.
Okay, I'm looking at how Fallen Idols got a 7.9. And that was a lot of Paris Hilton hate, so I'm gonna go 8.0.
Okay, let's check.
Okay.
It's an 8.5.
Oh, well, I don't like that.
Yeah, they think it's funny.
Okay.
This one is disappointed with the episode.
Because
there was a break
ableism?
before this one. Storyline was ill-conceived, well played out. Few weak attempts of humor.
I love how the scriptwriters choose an attractive woman as Dean's antagonist, the reversal of fortunes where Dean uses his looks and personality on women. Sure.
Diversity win. They literally said diversity win.
Yeah. And, like, she wasn't even a real woman. Like, he made her up, so, like, she was, like, a man in some ways. Man. I guess the Wraith being the main antagonist. I thought they were talking about the Doctor, because the Wraith was, like, both of their antagonists. The Doctor was Dean specific, but whatever. I guess they were being Dean-centric.
I mean, that's it, really. For this episode of Bus Station Beauties. Next week, we will be discussing Season 5, Episode 12, Swap Meet. Leave us a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts.
At least Sam is gonna call a teenager a virgin. I don't think it'll be that funny.
Yeah.
Well, follow us on social media. We are on Tumblr at bustationbeautiespod.tumblr.com. Our official tag is BABPOD, B-A-B-POD. Thanks to everyone who's donated to our Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/bustationbeautiespod, which is where our outtakes live. And check out our merch at babpod.redbubble.com.
You can email us any feedback, comments, or inquiries at bustationbeautiespod@gmail.com. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.